You're making one right decision today. You're listening to Handcuffs and Sage.
Three badass moms bringing you all the true crime and paranormal your heart desires.
I'm Red.
I'm Timo.
I'm Dre. And don't let your kids listen. Seriously, just don't.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Handcuffs and Sage. Timo
Hello.
here.
And
This is Timo.
Red.
And this is Dre.
And we're back. The girls are back. Move over, Joe Exotic. It's Timo, Red, and Dre.
So we're back doing true crime and paranormal. Yay!
Yes,
Woo.
thank the Lord.
The true crime thing is so fun to do. I really missed it. I enjoyed the Tiger King series, but I'm glad to get back to my roots.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
For sure, for sure.
So how was your week?
Oh, I'm not going to talk about my week. Because
Well then, fuck you, Timo.
Well, something major happened, and I can't talk about it at this point. It's not like I did anything like illegal or anything. It's just
That's not what I heard.
it's just a little bit emotional and a little bit scary, and it's a little bit drama in my life. So I might share that, later down the line. But yeah, right now, I'm just hanging. Just
All right.
hanging. Yeah.
All right, good. Hang out. Dre, how was your week?
It was great. We did a bunch of stuff in the yard. So like now that Juan is home, he's able to focus on things around the house, and he's like, yeah. We do weird things like buy 20 pounds of bird seed and make hummingbird food.
Just weird things like this.
This is my life. Yeah, I had this crazy idea that I want the back of my yard to be more like a bohemian paradise. So little by little,
Nice.
shit's expensive.
Yeah, girl.
I
took
know,
like
but
this very old, really old table, and then Juan chopped the legs in half, and then I put like three big ass
Ooh.
blankets on top, and then I covered it in like duck canvas. So it's actually like a little sitting area.
How
It's
cool
amazing.
is that?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
like
really
on
cute. I'll send you
concrete?
guys pictures.
Is that like
No,
on
it's
concrete?
Yeah, it is, but it's
Oh, okay.
it's like basically a table, like an old
Yeah.
kitchen table
Yeah,
that
I
we
totally
had
get
like
it.
sitting outside. Just
That's a
knocked
great
it down,
idea.
and it's like a sitting area now.
I love it.
Like,
Very creative. Doesn't it feel good
Yeah.
to do things like this? I love it.
Yeah,
I
it
love
does. And now we've been hanging out in the yard like every day, enjoying all the
Oh.
bird
Nice.
stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
We
you
actually have
guys,
like we have a little birdhouse, and it's like being inhabited by baby birds and like mama birds.
nice.
Cool.
I'm happy for you.
A couple
Thank
summers
you.
ago, no, maybe it was just last summer, I was looking for like a patio set out in my little patio that I have. They're just so expensive. So I was on Facebook, and this thing came up, and it was like $45. And I was like, oh my God. And it was absolutely beautiful. And I have a red umbrella on my table, the old table that I had. And I'm like, oh my God, it's red. It would totally match. It's so beautiful. So I looked, and there was like 150. I'll take it. And I'm like, oh, it's gone. It's gone. So I did something bad. I DM'd the people, and I said, I'll take it for 75. I just threw $75 at them, and they're like, when can you come? When can you come get it?
Oh my God, you're so shady. You're breaking the rules. You said you didn't do anything illegal. That is Facebook illegal.
I never had bought anything, so I didn't know. So I called my ex. He has a big truck. We went and picked it up. And then the lady, they were moving, so she never went back on and like said it was sold. So then I saw on the site, they're like, how come this, what happened to this? It didn't say that it sold or anything. And then I, like a dummy, go, oh, it's sold. And they're like, how do you know? And I go, oh shit. And then I start seeing all these people, if you were the one that bought it, that's breaking the rules, because I was the first, and I was the second, and I was the third, and da 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 da. And I'm like, I just deleted the whole site.
Oh my God. You are the shadiest. That,
you know what?
I just don't see how that's breaking rules.
Well, he told me that somebody sent him a DM before me and said, I'll pay you 50 for it. So he only went $5 over. And then as soon as he got my message, he's like, damn, this girl's going to $30. I'll sell it to you. So
Oh my God.
$75, it was still a steal. It's absolutely beautiful.
Here's my thing though, like when people post this stuff, it's like you post stuff on Offer Up, and that there's nothing saying that you have to give it to the first person that's calls dibs, right? Is there? Like, can you select?
It's in
the rules.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm talking so much shit.
Yeah, that's what's in the rules.
Yikes.
But then
I
also
just feel like if there's like a shady person that's like, hey baby, I'll come get it. Like, sorry, fool, no.
Right.
I will say no. Moving on.
Yeah. But the funny thing is they had never sold anything. They didn't know what the rules were either.
Okay.
But like I also saw a lot of posts where people were like, I think this is a typo. I think that should be like $450, not $45. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. Because I got it for $75.
Oh my God. So this week was kind of crazy for me because my daughter picked up her capping gown, and it was just so surreal that this is happening. And she got the awards for senior night, and so we're just super proud of her. And then I told the ladies earlier that she had like kind of this crazy experience yesterday where she saw something that kind of blew her mind, and she turned around, she took a picture of the license plate, of course, because she's my daughter and she knows that you need to do these things, right? So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully nothing, I swear.
Yeah.
But it's been a good week. There's a lot of things coming up, like her graduation and stuff like that. I just can't, it just like blows my mind that we're at this point where she's almost graduated from high school and she's my baby. This is my first time doing all of this. So hopefully it's still a good day, even though it's not in person.
Please tell me you got an email for her.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was for. I'm like, what is this? I was gonna ask you.
I was like, this is unlike Emma.
I was so out of it with the like starting of the migraine, I think at the time that I first saw it.
Yeah.
What is this? So is that for her? I'll let her know.
Yeah, that's for her. Yeah, that's for her. I sent her a little gift card from Starbucks because I was thinking about her. I was actually grabbing a coffee and I was like, you know what? I'm going to send her a little card. So I'm there and I just sent it like as I was in line. So
she does
cool.
love Starbucks.
That for. Yeah.
Thank you.
I know.
I appreciate it. I know.
No, she deserves it. She deserves more. Poor baby.
She's also always been a really good student. AP honor student, part of leadership. She helps with clubs. She did theater and cheer. She's always been very good in that way. Very, very responsible kid. And worked in high school. So we are very proud of her.
Wow, that's amazing.
I did it. What's so like crazy to me is when I graduated from high school, from the same school that she's about to graduate from, I was pregnant with her.
Yep.
And so I always want to say, well, this is actually your second graduation, so it's not that big of a deal, but I don't, because she'll be like, stop it. But we grew up together. I was a baby with the baby, and we really did grow up together, and I've always just been so proud of her. She's a really good kid. Yeah. Okay. All right. She is sassy, though, so.
Yep.
My new name for Aurora is Sassy Molassie.
Cute.
Hey, Sassy Molassie. And she's like, Mom.
Aww.
Perfect. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready to buckle up?
Yeah,
ready,
for sure.
Ready.
All right. Is it okay if we start with true crime?
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Of course.
Okay. Because Timo does have Sage going, preparing for her story.
Yeah. Like I said in the past couple episodes, and I think I also mentioned on one of the Down the Rabbit Hole episodes, is I wanted to come back with a bang. And my story is one of the scariest stories I think that I will ever do. And it's something that scares me still to this day. So yeah, I actually burned some sage before we started recording because I just don't want anything nasty to follow us or whatever. And then I'll also sage when we're done. So that's how serious this is.
Well, should we get out the Ouija board and just kind of do that at the
no.
same time? Okay.
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
It was just a thought. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So the story I'm doing, and let me know if you've heard of it, but this is a crazy story for true crime. It's called the Springfield Three. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
No.
No? What?
Well,
okay.
maybe if you get more, when you get more into it, maybe.
Sure,
I just don't know it as
absolutely.
the Springfield. Yeah.
Okay. So this story takes place in Springfield, Missouri. There's tons of Springfields, right? This is in the Midwest in Missouri. And this story is about 47-year-old Cheryl Levitt, and she was a cosmetologist. Her daughter, Susie Streeter, and her friend, Stacy McCall. And the two girls were friends, and it was at graduation time. So this is my daughter's graduation time. So this was their graduation time. This took place on East Delmar Street. Cheryl was a single mom, and she was beautiful. Like if you see the pictures, this happened in 1992. These girls and her, just beautiful. Like they had the whole hair going, the makeup. They were just in full 90s point, right? They were looking good. Okay.
Excellent.
So Susie wanted to do cosmetology like her mom. So that was her plan for after high school. Stacy, beautiful girl. She had done like a little modeling around town and everything. And they went to a school, and I kid you not, the name of the high school is Kickapoo High School.
Kickapoo.
Kickapoo. And it is spelled the way it's pronounced. It's Kickapoo High School. So I just thought that was kind of crazy. So Susie and Stacy graduated from Kickapoo High School on June 6th, 1992. So let's go back to 1992. Crazy time in 92. So the girls had a friend. Her name is Nigel Holdenberry, and she was talking about the girls and kind of what it was like in their town. And this was a very small place where everyone kind of knew each other, right? And what they did for fun back then was called cruising carny, right? Which was like a street. So they would all just kind of like drive up and down the street, hanging out with each other, which wasn't, I mean, we kind of did the same thing when I was in high school, right? Like on the weekends, we all just kind of drove around to find out where the party was, and we didn't have phones, right? So you'd have to like slow down and talk to the other driver. No, I'll follow you. No, I'll follow you, right? So kind of the same thing in the dark era, right? No phones.
Well, I graduated in 91, so I know exactly this. I know exactly. But we would go down to actually Van Nuys, where it was like like it wasn't like gangbanger land like it is now, and we would cruise up and down Victory down in Van Nuys.
Yes,
so,
Victory. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
But so, I hung out with the truckers, you know, like the low rider truck guys, like the truck groups and stuff. Yeah, that was my gang. Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to do it. I was my brother's 3 years. My brother was 3 years older than me, and like all his friends were always on the canyon. We used to cruise Laurel Canyon in front of In-N-Out, and I was allowed to do it. And if I was ever seen, even just like passing by, happened to go to In-N-Out or whatever, I was like told, "Hey, go home." I could like tell you so many times, like random guys that I didn't even know were like, "Hey, you better go home before I call your brother."
Oh, how fun! How fun for you!
A little, but so I was banned.
Oh, anyway. I'm sorry, Dre.
But he might have saved you from something that you don't know he saved you from.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sure. Yeah.
We can go do it right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, if you go to Laurel Canyon, in Pacoima or like San Fernando, there's actually a sign that like says like no cruising. It's still up there. It's really funny. Yeah.
I love that. I also just want to say I got a lot of my information from this covering this story today from like certain podcasts. There's a podcast called Mile Higher Podcast. They're actually on YouTube too, and I think they do a great job. And then also People Magazine did a cover on this on Investigation Discovery, and I thought they did a really good job with it.
Cool.
Yeah, so we meet Janice McCall. This is Stacy's mom, and she seems like a really lovely woman. She's talking about how Susie and Stacy met in the 2nd grade, and there's pictures of them, friends in 2nd grade. So they've been friends for a very long time. And then we meet Stuart, and Stuart is Stacy's dad, and he just seems like such a nice guy. And he was talking about his daughter Stacy and how she was asked to like model bridal dresses for like bridal season once, and the bridal dresses that you see her like trying on with the head thing is so 1992.
Yeah.
It's so fantastic. I love that they showed videos of this. So she's just a beautiful girl. Stacy, they said she was an artsy type, just beautiful, and she worked at a movie theater for her time in high school. I worked at the movie theater in high school. My husband worked at the movie theater in high school, and that's where we fell in love. So I love movie theater. Movie theater times, I guess. So Nigel is Susie Streeter's best friend, and she said that Susie was friendly, outgoing, she was strong and outspoken, and I think that those are really great qualities to have. Just saying that she was just such a sweet and fun girl. Susie's aunt, Deborah Schwartz, said that she was just so fun to be around. They all really loved these girls. These girls were absolutely loved and had lots of family and friend support, definitely. So it was graduation day, 1992, June 6th. Susie and Stacy cross the stage. They're super excited. They are done with high school, right? After the graduation, Nigel and her boyfriend came over and brought a cake. And it was shaped like, there's a picture of her sitting there with her friend with this cake, and it looks like a dragon. She said Susie loved dragons, so we had to get her this cake, but it was actually a dinosaur, but I wasn't going to tell her that. So it's this really great picture of these two friends during this moment after graduation. And of course, that night there was after parties, right? So Susie and Stacy were going to be going to these after parties. The plan is the next day, everyone was supposed to go to this place called Whitewater Amusement Park. And I guess that was like the hot place to go. And it was in Branson, which was like 45 miles away. So that was like the big thing that they were going to do the next day. Okay. So Susie was going to call the first thing in the morning to let her mom know, like what was going to happen. Stacy called and said she was going to stay at her friend Janelle's house that night. So Stacy called her parents. So we remember back then, you don't have phones, you don't have cell phones, you can just text your mom or whatever. You had to find a phone. You had to let your parents know where you're going to be, and then you'd have to follow up with them by a certain time, right? That's how we all stayed connected, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that's what Stacy did. So she called and she said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to stay at my friend Janelle's house," right? Because there's these house parties going on. Okay. So the girls get to the house and they say that Janelle's house was just filled with people. It was over the top, but also like Janelle's family was also there. So it was like, we should go. We don't want to stay at this party. So Stacy and Susie, they decide to go to Susie's house. Okay. And they left Janelle's around 2 a.m. They told Janelle, "Hey, we'll see you the next day, right, for the amusement park." So that was the plan. So around 7:30 a.m. next day, Janelle called Susie's house, and there was no answer. Okay, 7:30, no answer. So Janelle is like, "What is going on? Why aren't they picking up? We have plans to go to this amusement park." And by 12:30, she's a little pissed. Like, why aren't they answering me? So Janelle and her boyfriend go to Susie's house to see what's going on, right? So Janelle and her boyfriend, they pull up and they notice right away that they see all 3 cars in the driveway. So we would have Stacy's car, Susie's car, and then Susie's mom's car, Cheryl. So all 3 are there. So they should be home, right? So when Janelle and Mike walk up to that front porch, they notice that there's like glass right there on the doorstep. And they look up and there was like a globe light and it looked like it had been broken, like shattered, right? And obviously Janelle's boyfriend does not watch true crime documentaries because he picked up the glass. He's like, I'm gonna,
come on.
yeah. Like, I think he was trying to be a really sweet boyfriend because Janelle was barefoot. Like, they were off to go to this water park, and for some reason, she wasn't wearing any shoes. So he was trying to be sweet. So he picked up this glass for her. I think that's sweet. Okay. So the front door is unlocked. Okay. They walk in, and there is no mess in the house. Everything's in its place. They walk out to the backyard. Nobody's in the backyard and nobody is in the house. All 3 women are gone. They should be there. All their cars are there.
Yeah.
So they decide, like, let's wait a while. Let's see if they show up. You know, they don't show up. So they think, okay, we should just go on ourselves to the amusement park, right? So as they're walking out, the phone rings. So Janelle's like, oh, well, maybe it's one of them calling the house to let me know maybe what's going on. So she picks up the phone. And this wasn't crazy. Again, for back then, if you're at like somebody's house and the phone was ringing, you would pick it up, right? Because if you missed that call, you know, you were extra screwed. It's not like someone could just text you with information. So she picked up the phone and it was a man's voice and it was an obscene phone call. It was a guy just being totally sexually explicit on the phone. And Janelle, I mean, she's like this sweet high school girl. She just keeps saying, like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Right? So she hangs up the phone, hangs it up. The phone immediately rings again. She picks it up. Again, it's this male voice, and he's being just disgusting on the phone, right? So she hangs up the phone. And then she remembers that Susie had complained about getting calls like this before, right? So let's remember that. Stewart said that Stacy was very good about checking in with them. She was excellent. So for her to not call them that morning to let them know that she was off to the amusement park was not like her, okay? So they called Janelle's house to see what was going on with her. Remember, they thought she had stayed at Janelle's house. They didn't know she was going to stay at Susie's. Janelle's little sister picked up the phone and said, you know, Stacy's not here, okay? So Janice, Stacy's mom, she said she was trying to keep cool about it and not like make a big deal about it. I mean, when your kid's this age, you want to let them be a little independent, right? And she knows that she's supposed to go to this amusement park. So she's trying to stay calm and not be mad that she didn't get a phone call, right? But then 7 hours passed and she still hasn't heard anything. So she happened to have like some friends down in that area with kids that went to the park too. So she checked in and they said, no, Stacy and Susie did not show up at the park, right? So at 5:30, she was just off the wall worried. She didn't even know what to think. So she went over to Cheryl and Susie's house, okay? So she pulls up and she sees the cars there, right? All 3 cars there. And it just so happened at the same time that Janice is getting there, Janelle and her boyfriend Mike show up again, right? They're obviously worried. Everyone's very worried. So all 3 go into the house, okay? They go into the bedroom and their purses were there. All 3 purses of the women were lined up on the floor. Cheryl's purse was in Susie's room, which is very odd. Why would the mom's purse be in her daughter's room? That's odd, right? Janice looks over and she sees that Stacy's shorts that she had been wearing were folded up, just very nicely on top of her shoes. And she thought that is very concerning because those were the clothes she last saw her in, and those are the only clothes that she had with her. So why are they folded up over here on her shoes? So that huge red flag, right?
Right.
So Janice calls Stu and she says, the girls are missing. I'm calling the police. And Stu goes over to Susie's house, and they're, they have no idea what to think. They don't know what's going on. So Rick Bookout is the police officer that is the one that shows up to the house, right, to kind of investigate at first. He said that when he got there, there were several people at the house because a lot of people were concerned. Again, these people obviously aren't watching true crime constantly, and they're just kind of walking all over the place, right? They're just kind of doing whatever. So he's doing a walkthrough in the house. He says it looks like everything's in its place. It doesn't look like there was some kind of fight or anything like that. He said Susie's room looked like it had been slept in, right? That the girls had slept there. And he said you could even see like all the tissues and stuff that they used to like take their makeup off that night. Obviously, we know what that looks like. That's a hot mess. So he said the tissues were there. The makeup had been taken off. It looked like they had slept there, right?
Especially 90s makeup.
Oh yeah, the hot pink and red and purple all over the place.
Yeah.
He said that the women's jewelry was still there and their keys were there. He said all the purses were lined up, like we said, and that they still had money in them. So it's not like there was some kind of burglary or anything like that. Cheryl's purse, he looked in it, and he said that her cigarettes and lighter were in there. And I guess Cheryl was like a chain smoker. Like she never not had a cigarette. So for that to be there and her not to be there, that was, I guess, a huge red flag for them too. So Officer Bookout puts together a missing persons report for 3 people. Stuart, the father, said that night he told his wife, you go to bed. I'm going to stay on the couch and wait for Stacy to come home. And she didn't come home. And it just broke my heart, like hearing him talk about that. He said, I don't think I even slept that night, right?
Yeah.
So the following morning, June 8th, is when the case really starts to all come together, where people are like, this is a very serious situation. The detective that's assigned to this case is David Fisher. He said that there are at least 10 people at this house the first day just contaminating this crime scene, right? So obviously made it more complicated for them. That the crime lab went through, they did fingerprints of everything, they picked up glass pieces, right, that they could find from that broken globe light. And so they basically narrowed it down, like they were last seen around 2:30 a.m. And remember, Janelle tried to call around 7:38 in the morning. So it happened during that window of time. Okay.
Right.
So they're like, we need to think, was this just a perpetrator, right? Just someone that broke in? Was this someone they knew? Were they threatened? How did they get them out of the house without it being like a whole scene in the house, right? So they put a task force together and they just start interviewing everyone, and then they start thinking, like, is there anyone in Cheryl's life, the mom, that could have done something, right? And then we hear from Cheryl's sister, Deborah, who I really like. She's just a really sweet woman. And she's talking about how you just don't forget Cheryl. Like, she's just one of these dynamic personalities, that she's very responsible, but she's very intense and smart and savvy. And she said the only way anyone could ever get over on Cheryl is if they held a gun to her daughter's head, right? That she's not a woman that you played with. Cheryl was recently divorced from Susie's stepdad, but she was actually at a really good place in her life, that she was really enjoying like the single life, and she was very happy, and she was enjoying her time with Susie. And it seemed like they were very, very close, really good relationship with them. So they were really focused on this obscene caller, right? And they talked to Janelle, and Janelle kind of described this voice on the line as teenish. Like, maybe younger. Like that's what I took from
Okay.
it when you hear like teenish, like not
Mhm.
a full grown man, right?
Right.
So they talked to the phone company, and the phone company back then couldn't trace it. They have no idea where this phone call came from. They don't know who made this call. So that's a total bummer. That really sucks.
Yeah.
And then Nigel, the friend, you know, she's so sweet, and she's just talking about like at that age, you just think like nothing bad is ever going to happen. And she remembers like during this time, all of a sudden she had this terrible thought, like maybe they're not coming back. Right. And just awful. It just gave me chills when she said that, because in the mind of an 18-year-old girl, when something like that happens, it's awful. It changes who you are and how you look at everything.
Right.
So they start handing out flyers everywhere. So friends, family, you see like news footage of them going to grocery stores, you know, talking to the grocery store managers. These managers are being so sweet. Like, yeah, let's just put them even in like every bag, right? They're really trying to get these flyers out. Right. So then the media starts covering this disappearance, and that's why they're called the Springfield Three, right? So then a lot of publicity is on this story, and he's, you know, the detective is saying like normally maybe we would get like 500 leads, but because of the publicity, all of a sudden they have 5,000 leads within days, and you know they have to go through each lead, right?
Yeah.
So that almost makes it harder, right, in a sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So Cheryl has an older son, Bart, and he's 9 years older, okay, than Susie. Who names their kid Bart? Come on, Cheryl.
They live in Springfield.
They live in Springfield, and his name is, oh, Cheryl. Oh, what'd you do, girl?
Oh, Marge.
Oh, Marge. Okay, so we find out about Bart that he is definitely the black sheep of the family. He's a raging alcoholic. He has a bad relationship with his mom and sister. Cheryl had disinherited him recently before this, that they said Bart had a violent temper. You know, they talked to the Aunt Deborah, right, Cheryl's sister, and she said, you know, I don't want to say this about him. It's her nephew, but could he do something like this? It seemed like something he could do, which is really unfortunate and sad that they could say that. I guess he'd been an alcoholic since he was 17 years old. Like, that's just crazy. He exhibited weird behavior at times. He had hit Cheryl before, so he could get violent like that. She told him to stay away, right? Just leave us alone. He moved to another state, so they hadn't really seen each other for a while. But then he had this really bad breakup, and he came back to Springfield, right? And he actually reconnected with Susie and Cheryl, and like wanted to be part of their lives. And he got a job like at a survey company. So it seemed like he was kind of maybe on a better track at that point. And Susie said she wanted to really get to know her brother and asked if she could stay with him, you know, for her senior year. Well, he starts drinking, and he's just being a hot mess, and he's playing loud music constantly. And I guess at one point, Susie went into his room and said, you know, can you turn the music down? And she tried to turn it down, and he lost it on her and actually hit her. And she did have like a huge bruise. And so she left. She said, I'm no longer speaking to you. Right. So they had like this falling out. So Bart was questioned, of course. He said he was at a neighbor's house drinking. They went to this neighbor. The neighbor verified that Bart was there. And the neighbor said that Bart was sloshed, right? So for an alcoholic to be sloshed, you know, he must have been really pounding it. He said around 11:30, 12 o'clock, he went home to his home, of course, and went to sleep. He took a polygraph, and he passed. Okay. So, you know, the detective was making a point here, like, this guy's an alcoholic, and alcoholics do like black out and forget what they do. Did he just forget what he did? So they're keeping that like open, right?
Yeah. Also, like his time is not accounted for. He went to home at 11:30, But this all happened between 2:30 a.m. and morning. So
Yep. Right. So
Mhm.
we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
So then there's
Okay.
other leads here, right? So he was talking about things that they did during this investigation. They like went through the entire Lake Springfield. So they went through that entire lake. They drug it, right, looking for them. They had a helicopter looking for them. They had dogs looking for them, cadaver dogs. So they were doing everything they could to find them. So then we hear about Dustin Recklin. I apologize. Dustin Recklin. And this was Susie's ex-boyfriend, okay? And actually, it seemed like they had a good relationship, but then at some point, it just wasn't going to work out. Dustin and his friend Michael Clay at one point stole corpses from a mausoleum for the teeth.
What?
I want y'all just to take in what I just said.
Oh
These
my God.
two kids
Ooh.
got in trouble because they were caught doing this, and why they would be doing this, I can't even fathom. But they
want money from the tooth fairy.
Oh my gosh! How disgusting is that? Who gets in trouble in high school for something like that? You know what I mean? That tooth fairy would be like, these are your teeth. These are dead people's teeth.
Yikes.
So Dustin had used Susie's car while committing this crime. She wasn't there, but he was using her car, right?
Okay.
Not cool, Dustin. And she was brought in. She had to talk to the police about it, and she was, she gave him all the information about what she knew, right? She was totally helpful. And she even said, yeah, I will testify against them. They used my car. They did something terrible. I'll help. So Dustin and Michael were questioned. And in the interview with Michael, he straight said to the officer, I wish those bitches were dead. In the interview.
Nice.
In the interview. Right. Nice guy. Real nice guy. Dustin said he was in a car drunk that night. And that there were no witnesses. Like, he didn't have anyone to back up his alibi. Michael didn't really have an alibi. Their fingerprints were compared to the crime scene, and they didn't find anything. So their fingerprints were not at the house. And they both took polygraph tests, and they both passed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So within months of the investigation, tips are coming in, and they get this one tip that there is a potential killer named Robert Cox in Springfield. Okay. He was a suspect in a murder in the 70s of Sharon Zellers. There's a lot of S names in this story. And even Cheryl's name is spelled with an S.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
From Springfield.
Okay. From Springfield. Okay. So we have another S here, Sharon Zellers. So Robert Cox showed up at a hotel. Him and his family, I think, were doing Disneyland or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if it was Disneyland, but him and his family were doing something. He showed up later that night to the hotel, and he was injured, and his tongue had almost been bitten off.
Oh, wow.
Right? Okay.
Ooh.
So his family took him to the hospital, of course. He's got blood all over the place. His tongue is hanging. And right by the hotel, they found Sharon's body. She was dead. Cox was obviously looked at for this crime, but they said there was insufficient evidence. There was nothing that they could get on him, right? So in 1992, Robert moves to Springfield. Okay. So Sharon's parents called in a tip to the police, right? Like, maybe you should look at this guy because we think he did this to our daughter in the 70s, right? Robert worked for a phone company that had been working on lines across the street from Susie's house.
Oh.
Okay. He also happened to work at the same dealership. I don't know what he was also doing there, of Stacy's father. And Stacy's father said that she was a really good daughter and would bring me meals at work all the time. So maybe he saw her there, right? So that would be a connection.
Okay.
So they bring Robert in. They interview him, of course. Robert said he was at a golf tournament with his parents, and that the next day he took his girlfriend to church. So his alibi is church, y'all. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Using God over here. So they talked to the girlfriend, and the girlfriend verified his alibi. Yes, this is what he was doing. Okay. So then there was not enough evidence to do anything with Robert. So then we go 3 years later. So these poor family, friends, 3 years later, Cox is arrested in Texas for pointing a gun at a 12-year-old girl.
Oh, come on.
So I'm just going to say Robert's not a great guy. I just get that feeling. You know what I mean? So his story at this point changes, right? The police go down and talk to him, and he doesn't deny his involvement with the disappearance of the women.
Oh.
And then his girlfriend's story changes, right? So they've probably broken up. She's probably an ex now. And she's saying she doesn't know where he was. They did not go to church together. Okay? Right. So then 4 years after the disappearance, Robert does some kind of like interview with some TV reporters. So there's footage of this. And he says, I know they're dead. I'll say that. It's not a theory.
Oh.
Crazy, right?
Nice.
Come on now.
Right? So everyone's like,
Yeah.
well, can you give us more information on that, buddy? Right? And he's like, that's all I'm going to say.
Where'd you put the bodies?
Could you tell us where the bodies are?
Yeah.
So Robert, he wouldn't admit anything to the police, right? But he said, when my mom dies, I'll tell you then. Because he doesn't want to embarrass his mom. And the detective was saying, look, you have to remember that there's a lot of people who do things like this, unfortunately, for attention. And they didn't know if he was doing this for attention. Right?
Yeah.
They don't know. So 5 years after the disappearance, unfortunately, the police department had to let the family know that they couldn't continue the investigation. Okay?
Right.
That's just heartbreaking to me.
This is when like they're deemed dead, right? Like 5 years afterwards, you can.
I believe
claim that
so.
Yeah.
I believe that's correct, but they didn't mention that was the reason, right? They didn't say at this point. And you know, Janice, Stacy's mom, just felt like they were giving up, but there was no bodies and there was no DNA, right? It just it's just heartbreaking. So basically at this point, this is considered a cold case. It's been 27 years.
Wow.
Well, no, it's been 28 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in June 1997, there was a bench dedicated to the women in this memorial park, and it really is beautiful. And it's so sad because Cheryl's sister, Deborah, said that she's accepted that she won't know in her lifetime, like what happened to her sister. Nigel's talking about her friends and how when she thinks about that time, it's kind of crazy that really the moment she thinks about is when she's sitting with her friend, giving her this cake, and they were so excited for her future. And they were having like this really wonderful moment together. And that just like, oh, my heart just hurt because I'm thinking about my daughter and her friends, and they're all in this state of, you know, we're about to graduate and kind of start our next chapter, right? And Janice's mom says, and I just die, oh my God. Janice's mom said, My daughter's either 45 years old on earth or 18 in heaven. I don't know.
Oh, that's
Yes.
so sad.
Yes. And so to this day, there's a $42,000 reward for any information, right, for this case. You can call Springfield Crime Stoppers at 417-689-TIPS if anyone knows anything. So this is just a heartbreaking story. It looks like there were so many suspects, but really nothing to officially tie anyone to anything. And it's just so sad to me.
Yeah.
What a
strange. So is this dude's mom still alive? Like, I would be really curious if
that's
they could
what
just have a conversation with him after
Right.
she dies. Like, cool, she passed, let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
I mean, it's been a long time since he gave that interview. I mean, what, 20-some years? That would be something to look into, definitely.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Good
All right,
thinking,
let's do
Dre.
it.
I'm on it.
Okay.
I'll call his mama. You there yet?
I know. Let me know when you're about to kick the bucket.
Right. So that's the disappearance of the Springfield Three.
Yay.
You know, it'd be really shitty though if he died first. You know,
I
that'd be
know.
messed up. I just want to know. We all want to know.
Maybe he doesn't know anything. You know what
Maybe.
I mean? It could
Yeah.
be all for attention. It could have been Dustin and Michael really mad at Susie because she's about to testify against them. And it was just 2 weeks away that she was going to do that. I mean, you have to be some sort of angry to make a statement to the police that you wish those bitches were dead. I mean, think about that. Okay, so I mean, there's too many players. It could have been the son. Could have been Bart. So,
or just some rando that came in and out and never came
I mean, somebody's calling this house and making these crazy sexual phone calls for a while. That's some kind of deviant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And do I see Bart making calls like that to his sister and mom? No. Right?
Yeah.
Do I see Dustin and Michael doing that? No, because they're angry. Right? They're angry about this whole court situation. To me, it's leaning more on Robert.
Yeah.
Right? He's working at a phone company across the street from their house, making probably sexually explicit phone calls. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. So you guys had never heard that story?
No,
never.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, so now I'm gonna like do a deep dive because I have so many questions. You know, like I want to know more.
The pictures of them are just, their hair is so amazing and magical. The hair is fantastic.
I did take a peek at that when you mentioned their name.
Yeah. Really great.
Cuties.
Really great.
All right, I'll put those pictures on all on all the social media.
All the things.
Oh, is it my turn now?
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm like a little creeped out. My hands are a little bit
My
sweaty.
hands got sweaty too.
Oh my God,
right,
you
Timo.
guys.
Give it to us. Woo.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do the story of Doris Bither. And Doris, I'm just going to go straight into it. I'm not going to explain more. I'm just going to tell you guys her story. She is a single mom of 4 children. All 4 children have 4 different fathers. And she basically grew up in a very, very bad home. Her parents were both alcoholics. They were abusive to each other. They were abusive to her. And as a teenager, she was kicked out of her home, and her family totally disowned her. So she ended up getting married at 16 and having a baby.
Oh gosh.
Because that's all that she could do, basically. So during that time, she was a teenager, and she kind of dabbled with like seances and she played the Ouija board, and she kind of did like, some of the occult stuff, black magic,
She's a goth
whatever.
girl.
Yeah,
goth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is in the early 1970s, late 1960s. Okay, so
Okay.
After that, a little bit of paranormal activity did follow her after that, but it was stuff that you could just kind of explain away, that she didn't really take it as, oh, that's some type of paranormal activity or anything like that. So we're going to move on to 1974. Her and her 4 children moved into a house on Braddock Drive in Culver City, California. And so at this time, she had 3 sons and a daughter. Her sons' ages were 16, 13, and 10. And then she had her daughter was the youngest. Her daughter was 6 years old. So soon after they moved into this home in Culver City, a Hispanic lady came up to the door and was knocking crazily at her door. And she came to the door, and the lady started ranting and raving about how she used to live in this house and it's evil. and then she turned around and walked away, and that's all she said.
Could you imagine someone coming to your house and be
No,
like, evil?
fuck that. I would be like, bitch, get back here. What the fuck? I'm like, don't you run away from me.
Answer some question.
I know. So then that's when it all started. So
Wow.
at first they would hear just banging on the walls. They would have mysterious lights. Sometimes heard voices, like, very faintly in the distance. Her children started seeing things. They even named one of the ghosts in the home, Mr. Who's It. So
Mr.
they kind of
Who's
like,
It?
yeah, Mr. Who's It. So they kind of made it like as a joke, but whatever. They weren't really taking it very serious at this point. And then things started to get physical then. Doris and her children were starting to get touched and pinched, poked, bit. And
Oh gosh.
bit, and even sometimes, like, how kids kind of like run through the house and whatever. Some of them would run in the house and like bump into like a invisible force, like someone was like blocking their way.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They'd be running and they just fall over.
Yeah, or just like bump back, like they ran into a wall or something.
What kind of being can create that kind of force, right? Where you would hit it. Do you see what I'm saying?
The worst one would be a demon. But if you had a ghost, they'd have to have a lot of power, like they'd have to be getting energy from somewhere. That's very strong. That's a very, very strong, crazy spirit. Her oldest son, so she didn't really have a good relationship with her 2 oldest sons, but the oldest one claimed that whenever he listened to Black Sabbath or Uriah Heep, the paranormal activity would increase in the house. So, back in that day, Black Sabbath and Uriah Heep, I've never heard of that band before, but they were kind of like, that was Ozzy Osbourne's band. So, they all thought he was a Satan worshiper. They thought he was satanic. He'd bite the heads off bats in his act and all that crazy stuff. So he said that after he heard that music, that the lights would turn on and off all by themselves, and then he would see like these like orbs, and they would like bounce around on the walls and the ceiling and everything, which was that's like totally crazy. And then one day she had these candelabras, and they were sitting on this, like, you got to think back in the 70s, it was probably some type of like dresser, what do they call it, like a credenza or whatever, and these candelabras were thrown at her. And then
were thrown at her?
Yeah, they just came and were like thrown directly at her.
And now, like, at this point, I mean, how long are you going to take this kind of abuse before you run out of your house and you say no more? Like, when I hear things like this, I would have been freaked out if I got pinched by nothing or bit by nothing. I'd be like, bye.
Okay, so
how much do you take?
You guys got to realize that she was a single mom of 4 children. She was barely scraping by. Scraping by.
Okay.
She the home that she lived in, some stories said that the house was condemned by the city 2 different times. But then I also read that it wasn't condemned. It was just, just falling apart. It wasn't taken care of.
Oh.
It was foreclosed on a few times. It just, people just didn't, they didn't take care of it. And she either got it for really cheap, or, if it was condemned, maybe they were squatting in it, So
Right.
she had nowhere else to go. So basically at this point, it's just like, what do you do? So you stay here and deal with it, or you be homeless with your 4 children. Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
So then the fuse box was actually ripped off the wall, and that was flown at her through the air.
What?
Damn.
Yeah. So there's all this like crazy stuff happening. So then one evening, she put her kids to bed. She made sure that they were asleep. And then she went into her room, and she started getting ready for bed herself, when she was thrown on the bed and she was raped. And at this time, she thought it was a person that had broken into her home. But when she realized it, there was no one there. So this is called spectral rape. And it's been something that has happened way back in ancient Greek literature. It's in every, basically any ancient stories. There's things called succubuses and incubuses, and there are spirits that have sex with a human. And they
Why though? They dominate?
They're horny bitches, and
No,
I don't know.
No, I don't think that's what it is. It's probably about dominance and control, right? Isn't that why people actually rape women?
Right. Yeah.
It's about being dominant.
With the story of the incubuses and the succubuses, though, the succubus is the woman and the incubus is the man. And they're more succubuses because I guess it's the male fantasy of the man being raped by the female. But I think it's also a way to
probably my husband's fantasy. It's not happening. It's just not happening.
I think what it is like, they get energy, and then I think they might get part of your soul as well. So I think maybe it's like they get close to like becoming a living person again. I haven't read too much up on that.
She could feel something. She could feel like a being. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. She said he was a very large, heavy man, and she felt being penetrated and everything. She felt it all. So, okay.
How do you make a police report?
I know. Well, she didn't tell anybody at this point, because
I really wish everyone could see our faces right now.
I know. She thought that she was crazy. She's like, how is this happening? Maybe I drugged it, maybe whatever. So modern scientists have tied this phenomenon to sleep paralysis. So I can see that, but when you have sleep paralysis, you feel like tied down. You feel like you can't move.
Right.
But she felt being raped. Like, yeah. So I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. Her second to oldest son, Brian, his room was actually right next door to his mom's room. And he would hear these attacks happening to his mom. And he was so scared that he didn't know what to do, and he wasn't about to go in there and find out, but it really fucked him up.
Right.
And then he would look at her, and he noticed that she would have bruises on her wrists and her ankles. She had scratches and bite marks on her, and then she had these huge ugly bruises like in her inner thighs. And we come to find out that she said she felt 3 entities there with her when this was happening. Well, not really. There were 2 little ones and 1 big one. And she said the 2 little ones held her legs open.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Could you imagine that?
No.
Oh, my God. It's so creepy. It's so fucking creepy. All right. After a few times of this happening, she would be just like standing anywhere, like talking with her kids or whatever, and she would get slapped across the face, and you could actually see like her face being thrown across, and there was nothing in front of her. So they're obviously seeing this happen over and over again, and they're starting to get really, really, really fucked up. So one time they were all her kids were there, and they saw her actually get picked up and thrown across the room, and then she was being raped. And her oldest son actually went to try and help her, and he was thrown off of her. So he was grabbed and then thrown off of her, and he flew across the room. And he couldn't do anything about it. They sat there and just watched this happen.
They just watched?
What are they going to do? Like,
leave the room? Give him some privacy?
I don't know if they really knew what exactly was happening, though. They're like 10, 13, the little girl 6.
Are they taking her clothes? They don't need to take her clothes off.
I don't know. I don't think so.
This is just awful. And it's so sad that they just can't like leave their home. I mean, they could live in a trailer down by a river or something.
Right.
I mean, I'd be sleeping in my car at this point.
I know. I mean, you're talking about assault, sexual assault.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then one night they said there was like this fog that was in the corner of the room, and then it came out at them, and it like formed itself into like a shape of a person. And that's when Doris is like, all right, I need to fucking do something. And she told her friends.
That's when she did it. Not when they were raping her and holding her down.
I know, right?
That's right. She was like, you know what? This fog, I'm done. I'm done with the fog. Fucking fog in my house.
Well, no, I think what you're right. The attacks, the rapes were like a nightly thing. So I think at that point she couldn't handle it anymore. So she had told her girlfriend, and I think her girlfriend just thought that she was crazy. And I wouldn't think you were crazy, but some other person might think that you were just.
I'd be like, you think I'm crazy? Come spend the night.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Let me know how it goes. Hello.
So one day her and her bestie were in a bookstore, and this was in Los Angeles. It's called Hunter's Books. I'm sure it's not there anymore. And she overheard these two men talking, and they were talking about investigating and seeing an apparition and how they thought it was total bullshit and whatever. And she kind of said, hey, my house is haunted. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. Why don't you give us your number? Maybe we'll come check it out. And so she did, and they called and they went over there. So these two men were Harry Taft and Carrie Gaynor. They were research assistants at the Paranormal Research Lab at UCLA's Neuropsychiatric Institute. And when they went, and isn't that cool? Like back in the 70s, they actually had a department at UCLA that like studied that stuff. I don't know if they still do, but I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
When they arrived at her home, they noticed that the house was just a mess. And we're not talking about like kids with like their shit thrown around and, she had trash around, whatever. No, it was like shit was falling off the walls. You could see all the way into like the plaster was hanging off the walls.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And, like wood was like coming off the doorways, and it was just like totally just a wreck. And like I said, it had been condemned a couple times, so that might have been why. They found nothing when they were there, and when she finally, they knew that she was not telling them the whole truth. She was keeping something from them. And when they finally got it out of her, and they said that she told them that she'd been raped multiple times, they referred her to a psychiatrist that worked in their department. So at this point, they're like, yeah, this lady's crazy, this whatever. So then a few weeks went by, and she called them back, and she says, it's gotten worse. Can you please come back? So they're, for shits and giggles, they're like, okay, well, yeah, we'll go back. So when they showed up this time, they walked into the room, and they smelled this vile stench of rotting flesh.
What?
And yes, and it was almost to the point where they were so nauseated they wanted to throw up. It was just this horrible strong. And all this happened right now when the investigators, this is like in the beginning of August, okay, in Los Angeles. So you know how fucking hot it is in Los
Yeah.
Angeles. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, they were shivering cold. The room got so cold, they were like, their teeth were chattering. They were so cold. And there was absolutely no air conditioning in this like little piece of shit shack that she lived in. So they're like, okay, yes, we're going to start investigating. So this was the beginning of a 10-week investigation. It started on August 22nd, 1974, and they brought with them 30 other investigators who were in and out of the house during these 10 weeks. And they set up cameras, all the kind
Did
of,
they fix anything around the house while they were there?
I hope so.
You know, some light painting or?
Yeah, I mean, I hope they did, because if your walls are coming down and you got to like put cameras up and stuff, I hope they tried.
Oh, I hope there's footage.
Well, hang in there.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. So this is what they witnessed during their investigation. The kitchen cabinets would fly open, and a skillet came out and was thrown across the room. They saw greenish yellow balls of light flying all around. Again, a fog showed up. This was a green looking fog, and it came at them and also formed in the shape of the man like it had before. All right. So they took many, many pictures, but I don't know if they had any actual video footage. I'm sure it was available back then, in the late 70s. Well, this is like 1974, so it's like early 70s. I don't know. I'm sure they had like the old school cameras, but I don't know if they had any of that at that time. They were all sitting in her bedroom, and there was about 12 people in the room at this time, and she started screaming at it because it wasn't showing itself. It wasn't doing anything. And she's like, come out, show yourself. And that's when all these like lights started flying around the room at them. And then she would scream, it's over there. And they were using Polaroids at this time. So they turned around, took picture in that direction that she said. And when it came out, it was just all white. It was just whited out. There was absolutely it was like a big, huge light was shined on the Polaroid. And then she started screaming, it's right in front of my face. It's right in front of my face. And they took another picture, and it was all whited out. And then they took another picture, and this one was actually that you could see like the curtains behind her. You could see like from some furniture, you could see her from her shoulders down, but her face was just whited out. So the scientist guy, he's like, well, maybe our camera's just fucked up. So he started taking pictures, what he called control pictures, in all the areas that he just took pictures, and they all came out perfect. So the only ones that were whited out was when she actually said, it's over there. It's in front of my face. It's in front of my face.
Why would they be using Polaroid? I mean, they had cameras.
They had many, many photographers there, and they were using regular.
Okay.
I just think they wanted more of like an immediate, evidence, and you could get that with the Polaroid. I mean, I would do that too, like, I want to see it right away. Like now we have digital cameras, so we could actually see it right in front of our face.
Well, back then you'd have to wait 4 or 5 weeks for your mom to get her ass to the store to get that shit developed.
I know, right?
And then you see the picture, you're like, shit, it's bullshit, terrible pictures.
Throw this away.
I know. Remember the little kiosks that you would drive up to? They were like the yellow. Oh, those were the days. Those were the days. So there's a famous picture in this investigation where they actually caught something on camera, and this wasn't a Polaroid, this was on a regular camera. It's a picture of Doris, and she's sitting on the bed, and you can see other people in the room, and she kind of has her head down. I don't know what she was doing at that time, but there is a huge arc of light like above her, and it's totally bright. It's a black and white photo, and it's a total like just this arc of light. And a lot of people would say, oh, someone was just shining a flashlight across a light, or you guys did that. But when you look at it close, the bed is in the corner. It's up against the wall, and it's in like a corner. The light goes across the corner. Now, if you are shining something, it would be on the wall and it would bend at that 90-degree angle when it turned around, from the wall. This doesn't have a bend in it. So it's actually like out, like it's 3D out from the wall. So it's very stunning evidence for them. And they were really, really happy with that. And then there's other pictures of the same thing, and there are two arcs. A lot of them were just like a little half circle and then a little half circle on top of it. So almost like, like kind of like this kind of thing. They had that in so many pictures. And that's what these lights were, where they were flying across at them all the time. That's what they caught. Okay, so basically at this point, that's where the investigation stopped. It went on for 10 weeks. They couldn't do anything about it. They did their evidence, and they couldn't make it go away. Now, I don't know what happened at that point. I don't know if they suggested to her that she get an exorcist, that she have a priest come. I don't know. That's not told. But in 2009, Doris's son Brian was in an interview, and he said that he absolutely hated it when they had the investigation going. He would have anxiety attacks because he knew the house would get angry, the spirits would get angry, and as soon as all the people left, shit just went bananas. And he absolutely hated it.
Oh no.
Okay, what was it? What was this horrible thing? So there's many theories on what this could have been. Researchers have found that maybe Doris was a psychic, and because she had so much negative energy in her life, it kind of attracted these spirits to her. Yeah, I can see that happening. I don't know if she was psychic, but you have to understand what happened to her in her childhood. She had a really shitty, childhood. She had failed relationships, obviously, if she had 4 different children with 4 different fathers. And she was also an alcoholic. So, yes. So she was also a really, raging alcoholic as well. And they also mentioned that when she would drink, the activity would happen. But when she wasn't drinking, the activity wasn't there, which brings up the theory of possibly this being a poltergeist. Now, remember what I told you guys what a poltergeist was. A poltergeist is not really a human living spirit. This person wasn't alive, and then it's the spirit of a person. This is something that is manifest from some type of traumatic energy. Like, remember I said there's children that there's like girls that are going through their, they're getting their first period, they're going through puberty. This could conjure up something. So you got to think, okay, she has this like fucking shitty life going on. She has to take care of these 4 kids. She's had this shitty life. And then you have these 4 kids that are all coming up together in like puberty together. There was probably some crazy energy going on in that area. And then also she was an alcoholic. And one thing I didn't know about this, which I learned doing this research, and this freaks me out, is supposedly when you are drinking, you are more open to spiritual and paranormal activity.
Or do you just think that you're having these moments because you're drunk?
Maybe, but that scares me because I'm drunk quite a bit.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah. You should stop drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
No more drinking.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So another theory is because back in her teenage years when she, dabbled in the paranormal and she played with the Ouija board and she did kind of like black magic stuff, they think that she might have opened a portal to these evil spirits, and they've just kind of like picked a point in her life to come out and just wreak havoc. So those are the 3 theories that they have. 2 weeks after the investigators left, she packed up her family and she moved to Carson, California. 2 weeks there, fine, nothing happened. There was nothing going on. And then shit started to happen again in the new house in Carson.
So it followed.
It followed her. So she called Taft and Gaynor, and she said, it followed me, come help me. So they went, and they were doing another investigation there, and it wasn't as crazy as it was at the other house. She wasn't getting raped. They saw a vase fly across the room and shatter on the wall. They caught a lot of EVPs of footsteps and deep breathing, like up into the microphone. And as soon as it got the loudest it could in the microphone, like the microphone would lose all power.
Oh.
And then at that point, she's like, fuck this. So she moved to San Bernardino. And then she moved to Texas. And then she moved back to California. And each time she moved, it still followed her, but it got lesser and lesser and lesser. And the sad thing is, when she left San Bernardino to go to Texas, Taft and Gaynor never heard from her again. They lost total contact with her. She never called them again. They just don't know what happened to her. But she did stay in touch with this guy. His name is Frank de Filletta, and he's actually an author, and he actually wrote a book about her life, and the book is called The Entity.
Okay.
This was also made into a movie.
Yay!
I'm having chills right now, you guys. I actually watched this movie 2 days ago.
And it's called The Entity?
It's called The Entity. I watched it in the daytime. Okay. 2 movies scare the holy fucking shit out of me. Number 1, The Exorcist. Number 2 is The Entity. This movie is so fucking terrifying. I'm warning you. I'm warning you. It'll fuck you up. It will fuck you up. It's so fucking scary, you guys. So,
where did you see it? Where did you watch it?
I saw it on Hulu, but I had to rent it from Stars off of Hulu.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I have Stars off my cable plan, but it wouldn't play on demand. So I actually had to join the 1-week trial off of Hulu to actually watch it.
Okay.
I've seen it like 5 times, but I wanted to see it again so it would be fresh in my mind. And it was everything that I remembered. And I think I've seen it on TV a couple times where, you know, usually when you see stuff on cable, regular TV, they cut out a lot of the parts. You got to see this whole thing in like full, and it's bonkers. So this movie was actually finished in 1981, but it wasn't released until 1983. And I think what they say is they weren't sure that it was going to be a hit. They didn't think that it was going to make enough money. They didn't know people would be interested in it or not. Right around that time, Poltergeist came out, and Poltergeist was like this major success.
Right.
So then they put it out. And it was a success. Barbara Hershey played Doris, but in the movie her name was Carla Moran. And in the movie she has 3 kids. She doesn't have 4 kids. She only has 1 son, and she has 2 little girls. Ron Silver, he's he was a really famous guy back in the day. He plays a psychiatrist. So in this movie, they actually show her going to a psychiatrist. So they're showing 2 sides of her. They're showing her going to a psychiatrist saying that she totally needs help. She's crazy. She's insane. And he totally does not believe anything of what she's saying. And then they play it out the same way. Her and her girlfriend in the bookstore, they run into these guys. The guys come and they come to investigate. Well, one thing about the movie is go way overboard with it. They do a lot of stuff that does not happen in real life. But you have the music in this movie, I think, makes the movie scary. Like, you know, like the Halloween music.
Yes.
This music makes the movie even that more scary because it's kind of like a hard bashing sound. So every time she's being attacked, you just have this rah, 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 rah. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so scary. So in 1995, unfortunately, Doris died at the age of 58. She died of cardiopulmonary failure. And she also had multiple organ failure. They thought this was very unusual with the organ failure because she was so young, but you know, she was an alcoholic, but still they don't really know exactly what caused all the multiple organ failure. But yeah, so that was the end of of all that stuff. But it finally went away eventually. In that 2009 interview with her son, it finally did just stop. But yeah, this lady went through a lot of shit, man. And just I saw the entity years ago, had no clue it was based on a true story. I think it comes up like the entity, and then it says based on a true story, but I didn't see that. I didn't. And then when I heard it was a true story, I was like, what? Like this lady's being raped by a ghost? Like what the fuck? But yeah, if you do research on it, like everybody says it's the most horrific movie they ever saw in their life. I'm just warning you guys, it's a really good movie. And all you guys out there listening, it's really scary. It's really watch in the daytime. Please don't watch it at night.
Oh my gosh.
I never watch scary shit at night.
Oh, I love it. I love it watching scary shit at night. Like, oh yeah, I'm like, turn off all the lights. Even like if it's in the day, I'll like close all the blinds and make it dark. But yeah, this one, I'm like, no, we're watching it at noon. I'm there's no way in hell I'm watching this in the
So
middle
I
of
have
the
a
night.
couple thoughts.
Okay.
So I was thinking, I have heard before that hallucinations can be caused, obviously, like, toxic mold and things like that. So
right.
Were they in this home with all this shadiness going on?
Right.
Was it caused by, things like this, right?
Possibly.
And
Possibly.
with her being a drunk, right, being more susceptible maybe to, environmental things. Who knows what caused her thoughts? But then said
in that interview with her son, I think the interviewer had said something like that to the son, and he's an adult at this time and whatever, and he's like, I would think that, I'm thinking my mom was an alcoholic and she just had a shitty life and whatever, but he could not explain away all the bruises and bites and stuff that were on her body. I mean, he said they were in places that she could have done it. Like how do you bite yourself, like on the chest, like on your boob and stuff? How do you, how do you do that?
I haven't figured it out yet, so
I can do that.
Well, yeah,
because your boobs are big.
Yeah, if you have big ones, I'm sure you can.
Must be nice. You can bite yourself, Dre. You're gonna throw it in our faces. So I was having thoughts like that. Like, what other things?
Yeah, possibly.
Absolutely. So I just feel so bad for this poor woman. She just went through so much in her life, and I think that's really just sad in itself. And these poor kids being moved here and there, and different dads, and living without, and what a sad story.
When there is stuff that like happens like this, it always seems to happen to somebody that has had something going on with them. It's not just like your everyday, like, happy housewife, la la la. It's always somebody that has a broken soul, has something going on in their life where they're vulnerable to it. And she was definitely vulnerable to it. There were so many more. And if it really did happen, wow, that's so
awful.
scary.
Yes.
Supposedly there is a remake that came out last year. I haven't seen that. This is one of the movies where I don't want to see the remake, because it's like it was so good, and it was back, they made it in the early 80s, so a lot of the stuff is like, it's not CGI,
right? It's so much better.
Yeah, right.
I like it like that.
I want to tell you this, guys, this is one part. So there's this one part, and there is some nudie scenes in this movie.
Nudie scenes?
There is some nudie scenes, yes.
Who says nudie?
Timo does.
The nudes.
The nudes.
So there is this, and I don't know how they did. It must have been like a model of her body. She's laying on this bed and she's being touched, and you can actually see her body being touched, like her breasts. And it's so weird. It's so weird. I don't know how they did that. I mean, it had to be like maybe like a rubber body, and they're like pulling, like sucking it from below or something. I don't know, but they did it so great.
That there was some grips on set that said, I'll do it. I'll take your boobs.
But yeah, I
Oh
want you guys
my
to check
gosh.
it out and just see. It was a really, it's a great story. It's a great movie, but it's so scary. So yeah.
Mhm.
Good job.
Good
Yay!
Yay!
job.
So
You
you guys,
did it.
I'm sitting here in the middle of my story, and my closet that's to the right of me over here, this way, it's to
Stop.
your,
Stop it.
Holy just made this huge bang sound, and now I'm just like freaking out behind me.
Oh,
So
you better sage some more.
I'm gonna say it right now
Is the
Huh.
sage
while you
burning?
guys talk. I'm gonna do it right
Yeah.
now.
You're
Yeah.
supposed
Oh
to do it,
gosh.
I think, in a certain order, aren't you? Starting at a certain
Mhm.
spot in the house and like work your way.
I'm just
Is
doing it. I'm just doing it right here in my room where I'm recording and where I heard that sound, because that kind of scared the fuck out of me. Go away. I told you, you guys are not welcome here. Go away. I'm just gonna let this burn a little bit. Talk
Whew.
amongst yourselves.
I
Oh.
know. Good.
Dre, do you have a story?
I do. I have one.
What is it? It's a badass
Badass
story of the
story of the
week.
Woo!
Woo!
We're doing rounds again because we're on such a delay.
I know, right? I just felt like this story was pretty fitting given the time. I know all of us know a graduate, love a graduate, and we're dealing with this, the stay-at-home orders and all of our healthcare workers being badasses as they are. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how there's a lot of hospitals and a lot of places don't have proper PPE, right? So we're reusing masks and sanitizing goggles and face shields and just all kinds of stuff. Like there's a bunch of protocols where you're supposed to wear like a gown and gloves and whatnot, and so there's a shortage of supply. We know this. So this guy is graduating from the University of Vermont in Burlington, and his name is Nathaniel Moore. He is a physician's assistant, and he was looking at how healthcare workers are wearing like those black trash bags and just putting holes in them and wearing them as gowns. I mean, this is happening. Yeah, really, really sad. And so it's not the proper protective equipment that they should be wearing, right? So you want something to cover your neck, and then you want it to go all the way down to your wrist. That way you can use the glove to cover your wrist and you're fully covered, completely safe. So wearing a trash bag does not fit that criteria, but it is being used because trash bags are cheap and that's what they have available. So he came up with this really cool idea called Gowns for Good. So basically, his motto is, there's a bunch of graduates graduating. We have millions of students graduating from high schools and colleges, and millions of gowns that kind of just get stored away in our closets, in our garages. And so their motto is wear the cap, donate the gown. So basically, they're donating the gown from your graduation ceremony, which are not happening right now, to this place or this nonprofit, and they're sending them out to places in need, to hospitals and stuff like that. So I was looking it up, and he actually has donated so many, along with like a bunch of his buddies. The website is called gownsforgood.net.
Oh wow!
And
That's so cool.
yeah. And you can see pictures of like a bunch of healthcare workers wearing gowns. Can you imagine like having your doctor or like nurse walk in wearing a gown?
Right.
Basically, they wear it backwards with zippers on the back so that they can drop it properly, right? So somebody can help them get out of it appropriately. Their arms and their sleeves are protected. And so far, they've donated 10,175 dates. But they are still in need. So there's like medical facilities can go on this website and request it. And so there's 87,630 requests.
Wow.
So they still need these gowns. And the cool thing about it is that you can wash it and rewear it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that,
right?
Trey. Are they washable? That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's
anybody
awesome.
listening, if you have a gown that's sitting in there, I know I do. I have a gown that's 20 years old. if it can be repurposed and help somebody out there in the medical field, I'm all about it. Go to gowns4good.net.
That's awesome.
And donate that gown.
I'll put that on some of the graduation sites that I'm on right now.
Yeah.
Pages.
Yeah.
And let them know maybe after graduation, if they want to donate, what a great thing to do. I mean, we don't do anything with the gown after. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
Let's be real.
kind of like a keepsake, but your cap is the thing that you care about the most, and your tassel. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, what a great thing to do. Good story, Dre. Good
that was a good
story.
one, Dre. Thank
Badass.
you. Yeah, that was
Badass.
badass.
Super badass.
Nathaniel Moore.
Okay, so you can check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Check out our website at handcuffsandsagepodcast.com. Our email is handcuffsandsage@gmail.com. Check out our Patreon page. Support the ladies and become a patron. Get some fun goodies. Can you think of anything else?
YouTube.
Oh, we're on YouTube. Of course, I forget all the time. We're on YouTube.
It's so new.
It's super new. We're going to be adding to it. I think maybe Timo will have some extra time on our hands to, just do this full time for a bit. The podcast should be your life now. And check out the YouTube. We'll be adding to it. And we need reviews, right? If you have a good review,
iTunes, guys. Yeah.
On iTunes. Yeah. It always helps. And then you can always just message us too. We always want to hear feedback. We've gotten some good feedback lately from some people. And so it helps us. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and since we're recording remotely right now, we have access to invite tons of people to our Zoom. So we would love that. We would love to bring you guys on our Zoom, and we can, talk and whatever. I know we have probably a couple interviews set up soon. One of the interviews that we were going to do that was kind of on my side of it might actually be good for one of our Down the Rabbit Hole episodes, because it's the alien expert.
Yep.
So
that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but we have a couple other ones that we might be doing soon, so that should be fun.
Yeah. So we're back to true crime and paranormal on Tuesdays, and then we cover conspiracy theories in our Down the Rabbit Hole episodes, and that's Thursdays. So 2 times a week you can check in and listen to us and let us know what you think. Yeah.
All
right. Are we ready?
All
right.
I'm ready.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. We do
what
we
want!
Woo! See you next time, bitches.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Yeah.
Handcuffs and Sage is hosted by Red, Timo, and Dre in a shitty guest room in Los Angeles.
Theme music is Leave Now by We Are Wasted. Cover art done by Megan Winchester.
Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Show us some love on iTunes. Be a badass and do what you want. Until next time.